And welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. It might be a bit difficult this week to obviously talk about the show, or talk about the race. I mean, obviously we are going to be talking about the Mexican Grand Prix, but it was a race that wasn't frightful. It was frightfully boring. I think it's fair to say. Obviously, Max Verstappen taking his 17 trillionth win of the season. Obviously, 14th win, breaking the record for most wins in a season, taking it off Michael Schumacher in 2004 and Sebastian Vettel in 2013. Behind him, Lewis Hamilton, again for the second race in a row, coming close to a win. Maybe this one slipped out of his grasp a bit more than probably what happened in COTA. We'll talk about that. Did Mercedes do the wrong strategy? Sergio Perez, obviously crowd favourite, coming in third place. We'll also talk just generally about the Mexican Grand Prix circuit, because I think fair to say that while it's an entertaining circuit, obviously the fans very cool there, it's not one that's ever really produced the best racing. So we'll discuss obviously what we think could be done to improve the circuit. We'll also talk about the resurgence of Daniel Ricciardo. Apparently all he needed to do was collide with an AlphaTauri, and then he gained back his abilities, putting in a very, very impressive drive despite a 10-second time penalty, getting driver of the day. And just before we go back into a quick song break, we will run through the finishers for the race. Obviously, as I said, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez making up the podium, with George Russell in fourth place. Ferrari seemingly nowhere this weekend, with Carlos Sainz in fifth and Charles Leclerc in sixth. Daniel Ricciardo in seventh place, despite that, as I said, time penalty. Esteban Ocon finishing in eighth, with Ricciardo's teammate Lando Norris in ninth. So some good results, obviously, there for McLaren in their battle with Alpine. Valtteri Bottas rounding out the top 10 in 10th place for the Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly in 11th for AlphaTauri, with Alex Albon in 12th for Williams. Guan Yu Zhou 13th in the other Alfa Romeo. Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll making it Aston Martin 14th and 15th place. Mick Schumacher in the Haas, and Kevin Magnussen also in the Haas, obviously, in 16th and 17th. Latifi in 18th place in the Williams. And then the only retirements, Fernando Alonso with his 7,000th engine issue of the season, and Yuki Tsunoda obviously retiring after that collision with Daniel Ricciardo. So now obviously we are going to dive straight into the race, and I think it's fair to say that one of the main talking points was, from a race that wasn't great, was could Mercedes have won it?
I would definitely think so, yes. Definitely, it's definitely you can. I mean, you just look at the I don't know. I really felt Mercedes I did properly have the pace to actually challenge Red Bull this weekend. I mean, look at Hamilton. He was on harder tyres and he kept on par with Verstappen for practically the whole race.
Yeah. So obviously, it seemed like on Saturday, I didn't watch qualifying in the end, but it seemed like on Saturday that they really were looking like they were going to be on pole. It seemed like for the first time this season, Mercedes actually had the quickest car. Obviously, then Max Verstappen came in and ruined that a little bit. And you know what? Have you seen on Instagram the guy that does it's a comparison, but it's like 3D, and it shows you where the cars are on track at the same time?
I think I have seen it, but I can't remember exactly what it was, because it was a while ago now. Yeah,
so the Mexican one, Verstappen has like a three tenths lead at the end of the front straight, and I think that's sort of where obviously the Mercedes has struggled with top speed. Red Bull has obviously shone with their rocket ship engine. Do you think that maybe obviously we'll dive into the race in a second, but do you think that top speed might have been a bit far, especially as we saw come Sunday that overtaking was pretty difficult around the track?
Yeah, no, definitely that top speed would have helped. And, especially with Mercedes' weaknesses with straight line speed over the year, I think that straight line speed would have been really important, at least for trying to overtake and make a way through the field in case something did happen, which not for most drivers, nothing really did happen.
Yeah, and obviously we had the start of the race. We had Verstappen get away well. George Russell, for once in his life, deciding not to dive bomb someone. It's like, of all the races, just do it at this one. Not like you're dive bombing Carlos Sainz at COTA. You're not going to win at COTA, but if you dive bomb Max Verstappen, then at least one of you could come out with a victory. I'm not saying he should have done. I think it's better that he didn't. Obviously, top three getting away well. Russell falling from second to fourth place behind Hamilton and Perez. And then we sort of settled into it, didn't we? And it was the different tyre strategies, I think, that gave the race maybe a bit of intrigue at the start. Yeah,
definitely, because a lot of people did take different strategies towards the end. I mean, I think Verstappen went for a soft and the medium. Same with Perez as well. Hamilton went medium hards, as well as Russell, even though he didn't want to do that. And then, I think most people went for the medium hards, and then you did see Danny Ricciardo taking the medium and soft approach, which actually ended up being the best strategy of them all, really.
Yeah. So. And obviously, we did see that medium hards from the Mercedes, and I think that was seemingly the point where they sort of lost the race, because the tire wear wasn't anywhere near as harsh, I think, as anyone predicted, or especially Mercedes didn't predict.
No, I didn't. To be honest, I think I did see that tire deck wasn't going to be high. I mean, tire deck is historically not very high at the circuit anyway. I think partly because of the altitude, and it is one of the circuits. It's but tire deck is not really a big issue. So the fact that Red Bull did go for the soft medium approach, and I think Ferrari did that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
No clue what Ferrari. They were nowhere Ferrari.
No, they were completely nowhere because of the out. I mean, there's quite a few reasons for that, but it's a bit intriguing to see how the different strategies actually did work at the end.
So do you think Mercedes could have won the race? Because personally, I still think it would have been pretty difficult for them to have won it. I think the straight line speed of Max Verstappen, and obviously the Mercedes is still quite a draggy car, and the fact Mexico wasn't especially good for overtaking this year didn't lend itself to anyone being able to overtake Max Verstappen in any car.
Yeah, I think, to be brutally honest, I think there was still a chance, because I think Mercedes did go for the medium hard approach, but I think especially with Russell they could have challenged, because Russell was trying to gun for the medium soft approach, and Mercedes doesn't suffer from bad tire deck like the Ferraris. It's just switching on the tires, which that racetrack isn't really an issue either, because you got loads of high speed corners and stuff on that circuit as well. And the thing is, with the top speed, Mercedes, this is probably the only track of the season where Mercedes didn't really need to worry too much about the drag car because of the altitude, because of that altitude, that drag doesn't play that much of a factor. It's more just about generating the downforce, and the Mercedes isn't too bad at doing that. So that's probably the reason why they were actually on pace all weekend.
Well, yeah, we've got Brazil coming up, hopefully a second highest track, obviously.
Yeah.
So might have a chance. But no, I think that was the thing. It was less draggy. So Mercedes had more of a chance. I mean, we were saying it like halfway through the season, a third of the way through the season, Mercedes will come back. They'll win some races. And we've now only got 2 races left, and obviously no wins have been forthcoming. Obviously, we do have those 2 races. Brazil is looking like obviously the best option for Mercedes to win. Obviously, the second highest track on the calendar. They've done well at other tracks at altitude. They did well at Austria as well. So do you think that they'll have a chance at Brazil? Obviously, judging based on the fact that obviously we have been to now quite a high circuit in terms of altitude, and Brazil, while it's nowhere near as high, it's still a fair way above sea level.
Yeah, but I don't think it's high enough to make a difference like Mexico does, because don't forget, Brazil is about 7... Because I think Brazil is on a similar altitude to Austria. It's a bit, I think it's about 30-40 metre difference, whereas it's about 700 metres above sea level, I believe. But Mexico City is all the way up at 2,000, and that level is when it really makes a difference. I really don't think so they have a chance. To be honest, the car is just too far behind, even with... And especially with the cost cap as well, you know... I didn't really think Mercedes would get really that close to win this year.
Yeah. So going back, obviously, to Mexico, do you? I mean, it's hard to say. Do you think Mercedes were too conservative in their tyre strategy? Do you think that they could have gone a bit more aggressive? Because look, and I think, especially with Lewis Hamilton, it seemed like they covered off Perez when they really almost didn't need to, in a way, and that's what cost them.
Yeah. Definitely, because the tyre deck on Hamilton was really good, I think, and both drivers, I believe they could have done the medium soft strategy like Danny Ricciardo did. So and like we saw with Red Bull at the end, the RB18 is pretty good with tyre deck, but the Mercedes isn't too far behind either. So and tyre deck on the medium tyres was actually really good. I think Max did about 50 or 45 laps on those.
Yeah, it was about 40 laps.
And and he was still going faster than Hamilton on the hard tyres. So I really believe that, the change of strategy, Mercedes had a really good chance. I think that Mercedes definitely threw this one away.
So do you think they should have split the strategies, obviously, with George Russell?
Definitely. Because even Russell was so much against. That's one of the few times I actually agreed with Russell this year. So that, they should have just extended Russell's stint, because he was on a decent pace as well. He could have gone for the soft tyres and possibly challenge Verstappen. I believe the Mercedes did have the pace this weekend.
Yeah, and obviously we'll bring it over to Max Verstappen now. 14 race wins. I think broken the record for most points in a season. Obviously broken the record for most race wins in the season. That, I think everyone has sort of acknowledged, and I think Max Verstappen's probably the first to acknowledge that now we do have a lot more races in the season, then it is a lot more likely that this record was going to be broken at some point. I think you can look to... I think Schumacher's 2004 season is still the benchmark of probably the greatest single over the entire season performance that we've ever seen in F1. 13 wins on the podium at every single race. I think that's the benchmark that will never be beaten. But 14 race wins is incredibly impressive from the Dutch driver.
And then we've had 20 seasons now? 20 races in the season.
F1 is younger than I thought.
20 races of the season, and then so that pretty much equates to a 70% win rate at the season already.
It's very similar to Schumacher's.
Because I think Schumacher's was around 72.5%, whereas Vettel's 13 wins was only around 68%. So if you look in terms of percentage levels, that Verstappen's really up there in terms of just the just how it is. And I'm just looking at the stuff now. Verstappen, probably with the... I think... I'll take out Bahrain and Australia out of the equation because he DNF'd because of an engine issue.
Would he? So he wouldn't have won. Was he winning in? No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't winning in either race. In neither of those races.
I don't think he would have won.
But at least
maybe Bahrain, but definitely not Australia. Yeah. I don't think.
But at least in terms of with Schumacher's record of finishing on the podium in every race, because I think because Verstappen I think had the damage in Great Britain as well.
Yeah.
So, factors that...
he probably would have won in Britain had he not obviously had that damage. Where else hasn't he won? So Leclerc won in Bahrain, Australia, Austria. Austria was very much a Leclerc victory.
Yeah, so he's had 3 wins this year. Sainz won in Great Britain, obviously. And then, was it...
Perez won in Monaco
and Singapore. So then... really the only play time Verstappen wouldn't finish with the podium off his own merit would have been Singapore, because that was
he had a bit of a stinker.
That was the only genuine slip up of the season he's had this year.
Well, like we said, everyone had a bit of a, like the majority of the grid had a stinker at Singapore.
Yeah. But then so you look at Verstappen's performance. Arguably, you can even say it's close to Schumacher's, because almost all the time he hasn't been on the podium this season is pretty much not been his fault at all.
Yeah, no, I think it's close. I think Schumacher 2004, Vettel 2013, obviously that 9 race wins.
That was incredible.
I do not want that record broke. If that record breaks,
no, that's the one
really
Seb record. No, there are 2 Seb records I really do not want to be broke. That he still got that I really don't want to be broken. That the youngest world champion, and obviously the youngest double, triple, and quadruple world champion along with it. And then obviously the 9 race win streak. I mean, it is on those 4 years. I'm sorry, but that was so much. That's probably my favorite ever of F1.
I would like to give a small shout out to Hamilton in 2020 as well.
Yeah,
because of the races he didn't win, he didn't do Sakir. He's still recovering from COVID at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Austria, that one's the stinker. 70th anniversary, the Red Bull was just quicker that day. And then Italy and Russia, it was sort of more the team's fault.
No, Hamilton won in Russia.
Not in that year.
Oh no, I keep confusing.
The 2020. I'm not entirely convinced the 2020 Russian Grand Prix took place, but every time I look at it, it says it did, and I'm like, when did this race happen?
I'm still thinking last year's Sochi race.
But Hamilton 2020, I think that would be up there if it had obviously the amount of races that we've had this season. But I think Verstappen's performance this season eclipses it as much as I don't want it to. It does. Verstappen's had an incredible season, and obviously he's got two more chances to win 2 more races. What's the gap between, for the record for most points by a team, I think they've got to score 60 something more. It's like 60.
Yeah, something like that.
5 or something. I'll let you Google it while I keep talking. 65 races for Red Bull or something like that, with 2 races to go. Do you think that they can do it? Obviously, there is a maximum of... maths. 88. What's 88? 96 points still available.
Yeah.
With the sprint. Oh, no. 103. 103 points still available. Because 44 for the races and then 15 for the sprint. How many points do they need? So, at the moment, the... what is it? 2016 Mercedes.
I think, no, it was 20... It was either 2015...
I think it's 2016 Mercedes, as far as I'm aware.
Is quite a lot of records on the Wikipedia page, so so you might have to bear with it for a few seconds.
No, but I think. Well, I'll look it up, see if I can find it quickly. But do you think that?
There you go, found it. 2016 Mercedes, 765 points.
What of 2022 Red Bull on?
And then if you look at the 2020 Red Bull, they are currently on 696 points. So. It's still possible.
How many points is that? I haven't got the maths in front of me.
So that 765 minus 696 is 69 points.
Nice.
So.
Well, 69 points. Do you think they can do it with 103 still available?
Every chance there is. You still can.
Stop breaking the fun records. I like having the records. Yeah. It's not even me. I like my team and my drivers having records.
Yeah, because
No, but obviously we've spoken about Hamilton, spoken about George Russell. Talk about Sergio Perez, who just had a bit of a boring race, a home race, come third again.
Yeah, he just wasn't there all weekend. He just didn't have the pace. It's hard to tell with Red Bull. Like, is Verstappen just really good and makes Perez look worse, or is Perez underperforming? I don't know. I think Verstappen is just that good. Because Perez isn't a bad driver by any means. But, and the thing is also, as well, Verstappen's driving style, it's pretty much unique on the grid. Because you look at it last year as well. I think the main reason nobody else could drive that Red Bull other than Verstappen because the car was purely designed to his driving style. And with his driving style, he's one of the few drivers that prefers a front-loaded car, so a car that likes to oversteer more. So he lets control, so you can control how much back end, and a very few select amount of drivers can really do that. Use that driving style very well. So
this is way more technical than my mind allows me to get with F1. But no, I think Perez, obviously adored by the Mexican fans. It was nice. Well, he overtook the Ferrari. Papa Perez. That's 1 point in the fantasy because we were all standing that man. He's so nice. Oh, it was so great.
He's such a legend.
It was so great when obviously they were giving Hamilton a bit of stick, which obviously is nice to see. And he just looked over at Sergio and then instantly he told them to stop. And that, I think, says a lot about the sort of man Papa Perez is. And he's best friends with Lewis Hamilton's dad. This is the bromance I need, and I need a travel show with Anthony Hamilton and Papa Perez.
No, but yeah, he's just a legend, man.
Do we need Drive to Survive? Can it just be 10 episodes of what Papa Perez gets up to on his day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be great television, but it would just be such an innocent guy.
It would absolutely be brilliant.
So adorable, man.
He's such a wonderful man.
Man,
He's smiley all the time. Has now become a Papa Perez Stan radio show.
Yeah, probably.
And I do not apologise for a single thing. Now we're going to obviously dive in to our favourite Australian on the grid, and obviously only got 2 races left now, but he's sort of maybe saving the best till last with his performance at Mexico. I'm of course talking about Daniel Ricciardo. I think it's fair to say we all sort of lost whatever additional hope we had. We all lost a little bit extra when we saw Ricciardo collide with Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, I think that was just because Ricciardo was actually running half decent race at that point, and yeah, then that happened.
We were like, Ricciardo, please stop. And then
actually no, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, my initial reaction was, why did I'm going to partially put the blame on Tsunoda here as well.
No,
I will be.
Okay,
no,
fine.
I am.
We will disagree, and you go first, and then I'll go.
No, I'm going to put the argument that Tsunoda opened the door for Ricciardo to have a go around the inside. He took a wide entry into that corner there.
I'm going to put the argument in that there has never been a singular overtake at that corner where someone has been able to dive from way back and make it work without collisions. That overtake has never worked, ever. Every time it's performed, it ends in a crash, and there wasn't going to be any different there, and he shouldn't have gone for it, and he did knock Yuki Tsunoda out of the race.
I don't know, because I remember looking at the onboards, and I'm like, he took a very wide entry into that corner, a very wide entry, so I don't blame Ricciardo for actually trying.
It never works. It never works.
What if it did?
But it never does.
But sometimes it does.
It's like saying, I don't know, that if I chuck a feather off the top of a building, it will hit the ground in 2 seconds. It's not going to hit the ground in 2 seconds. It will never hit the ground. You can't use the logic of it might hit the ground in 2 seconds, because it won't.
You never know. Could do.
I do know because it's a feather.
No, but
it's not like a brick.
But with that corner, you can't take that wide of an entry into a corner like that.
Regardless,
especially if you're fighting someone like Danny Ricciardo, who's generally known for with his late braking stuff. And yeah, I thought it was a bit more of a racing incident that shouldn't have happened.
No, 10-second time penalty. It was interesting.
That was harsh.
It was interesting.
5 seconds.
A 10-second... Oh, is it? Hang on. Is it harsh? Because we said last week, or it was last week, Kota. We said last week that we thought the 5-second time penalty for George Russell was quite lenient.
Yeah.
And now we're saying this 10-second time penalty for Daniel Ricciardo is quite harsh. When... in essence, they're both sort of the same incident.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, you could argue either 5 or 10 seconds.
I think 10 is fair. I think that they need to do it. So if you knock another driver out of the race and if you knock another driver out of the race, and they don't have a chance of climbing back up, and you continue, that is a 10-second time penalty. If you knock a driver down a few positions, and they are able to recover, then that should be a 5-second time penalty. I think that's I was thinking about this because obviously initially my reaction to the Ricciardo incident was that it seemed quite harsh to give a 10-second time penalty, but the more I think about it, he's knocked another driver out of the race. They were both on for points.
I mean, I think, to be fair, I did forget that Tsunoda actually retired from that race.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look from that respect, definitely that's fair.
If you knock another driver out of the race, you should get a 10-second time
But still,
penalty.
I know we talked about that last week as well, but still, that was 5 seconds for George Russell for that sort of an incident, for what is practically blind driving, is...
I think, no, 5 seconds was too lenient. I think this 10-second time penalty was fair. But
no, I'll concede on that one.
Yeah, but failing that, Ricciardo suddenly became a man possessed and finished 7th in the end.
Ricciardo finally, I don't know, somehow Ricciardo decided to wind back the clock by 4 years.
I saw a fun theory because I think he collided with Gasly in his first race for McLaren. And it's he collided with an AlphaTauri and it knocked all his confidence and driving ability out of him. And all he needed to do was collide with another one. And he got it all straight back.
Yeah.
And now he's just going to be old Danny Rick Red Bull for the final 2 races. But no, it was not. I think it was nice to see Daniel Ricciardo actually competing again.
He needed something like that big time. And in fact, I think... I've always supported Danny Ricciardo more out of the Red Bull loyalty.
It's just F1. It's anyone on F1 Twitter that says Daniel Ricciardo is washed, I automatically disregard anything else they ever say, because if you've joined the sport now and you've only seen Daniel Ricciardo at Renault or McLaren, you do not understand how good he was back in the Red Bull days. Yeah, that man was dive bombing people for fun. He was winning with half an engine in Monaco. He was doing it with a smile on his face. He was legendary.
A little bit like Kimi Räikkönen, because you look at Kimi Räikkönen in the second.
Daniel Ricciardo, our generation's Kimi Räikkönen. We'll just back him to the hilt, but all the younger fans are like, "Why are you supporting this driver?" Probably.
Actually, no. I'll probably say a bit more
Vettel.
A bit more Vettel in that respect.
Yeah. Anyone that disrespects Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo,
or Kimi,
Even Bottas to a certain extent. Maybe not as much.
No, I would say no. I think it's just more universally, he was treated... We all like the guy as a personality, but we know that he's very inconsistent as a driver.
God, we've got our own special generation of F1 drivers now. We're getting old. This is concerning. And speaking of another AlphaTauri driver that is in a bit of bother, Pierre Gasly.
Man, he's got to...
So he
has to do 9 races without anything going wrong for him, and otherwise he's in a very bad shape of getting a race ban.
So obviously, what happened? Gasly forcing Stroll off the track. Was it Stroll?
Yeah, it was Stroll. Unfortunately,
it's always involving Lance Stroll somehow. Forcing Stroll off the track, getting a 5-second time penalty. I think everyone was just like, "Yeah, that's a 5-second time penalty," and that puts him up to 10 penalty points for the four over the last 12 months. Obviously, penalty points, a weird system where you can get them for incidents or doing something wrong. You get 1 or 2. And if you score more than 12 over a 12-month period, not the season, which is a bit different. So 12 over a 12-month period, and they expire after 12 months. So, for example, George Russell's last week in Costa, they obviously got for that incident, they will expire in October 2023 on the date of whenever the date of the race was. Gasly is now on 10. Have you got a run through of what the 10 are?
I've literally just pulled that up. So, yeah.
And we'll run through and say whether they're justified or not.
Well, believe me or not, the first one is actually another collision with Stroll at Spain. I don't remember that one.
When did that happen?
This apparently happened at Spain.
I didn't watch the Spanish Grand Prix, to be fair.
I don't remember that at all.
I was listening to it, then saw Hamilton had collided with Kevin Magnussen, then I switched it off out of rage.
All right. No, so yeah, he got 2 penalty points for that.
And that was on the 22nd of May 2022. So they'll expire in May 2023, and those are his first penalty points.
Yeah. Then we go to Austria, where he collided with Vettel. So I don't know what Gasly has got with Aston Martin.
When did that happen?
This happened in Austria.
I'm not convinced these incidents actually happened. They've just made up penalty points.
Well,
no, that was Kimi and Vettel last year. When did he collide with Vettel?
I don't know. I need to have a look at that incident at some point. But yeah.
Okay, we'll assume it probably occurred.
Yeah, and also Austria as well, he got a penalty point for track limits.
Like leaving everyone else on the grid.
Yeah, leaving the track without a justifiable reason multiple times, to quote.
I think that's fair. I think everyone was on a bit of a mad one.
Yeah.
It's always Austria.
Yeah.
Track limits are like...
Turn 4, track, no. No, it's pushing people off the track on turn 4.
Yeah, turn 4, final 2 corners as well going off the track.
No, it's the final 2 corners with track limits is the main problem. And then Perez, for some reason, likes to push people off at turn 4. And then Japan, it was the Japan incident.
That was fair.
He did speed under red flag conditions. He sped under
red flags. He sped under red flags at spoon curve, not going past the tractor.
Yeah.
Obviously, the tractor incident is in itself... bad,
really bad, really bad.
He did speed under red flags at spoon curve, so that penalty is fair.
Then the next 2 was at US last week when he fell more than 10 lengths behind the safety car.
That was unfair. Every single driver was more than 10 lengths behind the safety and the last car.
That was a shambles for just the amount of penalties he got that race. And then obviously the latest one was the 1 penalty point for the Stroll pass, which is completely justified.
So I think was it 2 for the US one?
Yeah, so it was 2 for the collision with Stroll, 2 for the collision with Vettel, 1 for track limits at Austria, 2 for the red flag in Japan, another 2 for the safety car in the US, and another 1 for the Stroll incident in Mexico.
And I think apart from the US ones, and assuming the collisions did in fact take place and we've not just memory hold them somewhere, they seem fair, and it's a problem. I don't think anyone thought Gasly was going to be the first victim of the penalty point system.
No. So especially the amount of crash-heavy drivers we've had over the last few years.
So now, what do you think he does? What's the strategy here? Because since he's got to wait till May. So he's got 2 races, and then how many was it? 9 races? Did you say?
Yeah, because he's got to go the first 7 races as well. I'm looking at the. Okay, no, I just looked at the Spain incident. So Stroll tried to go around the outside of turn 1, and then there was a collision, and then
I do remember that now. I do remember that one.
And I'm just going to look at the thing.
The Vettel
now really quickly.
It's good to see we do research for our show.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, but. Yeah, then that was definitely a 2 penalty point one.
Yeah.
Because, okay, here we go. This is Sebastian going around. Okay, this is literally a repeat of Hamilton Albon.
I think I do remember that one as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
yeah, that was definitely another 2 points.
What do you think? What does Gasly do now? Because he's been very vocal in his dislike of AlphaTauri at this point. That man wants to leave that team as soon as humanly possible. So, in just one final middle finger to them, does he just get 2 penalty points at Brazil and just sit out, have an early holiday?
Why not?
You know how sometimes.
Well, actually, no, it works in his favour. He doesn't need to drive at the rate at Asperino.
That's my point. You know how footballers sometimes just get sent off so they can have an early holiday. Does he just do that?
Why not? Brazil is one of the easiest races to do that on.
Oh, you just dive bomb someone at turn 1 and collide with them.
Dive bomb Russell.
Yeah.
As revenge for science.
If Gasly is racing Russell at some point, the race will be good, but something would have gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
No, but do you think you don't want to say an F1 driver is going to deliberately collide with someone?
I mean, we saw that in 1989?
90.
Oh, 1990.
I'm assuming you're referring to... Wait, which one are you referring to?
Senna crashing into Prost and
Senna into Prost was 90. Prost into Senna was 89.
Yeah. I always mix up my years. I mean, encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Flag.
But does he? Because obviously Alpine aren't going to be especially happy with these 10 points. Has he received an email from Alpine being like, get rid of them, please?
Especially with Safenau, with him liking to run as much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not the biggest fan of Safenau.
Why can't all the team principals be called Mike Crack? I can't take that name seriously. But no, what do you think happens with Gasly? Maybe it'll be part of one of our predictions. Gasly gets penalty. Actually, that will definitely be part of one of my predictions. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, no, I won't do that then. But yeah.
Do you think Gasly gets those penalty points?
Maybe. I don't see why he wouldn't. Just for the sake of getting an early finish to the season, leaving AlphaTauri as soon as.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But now we are obviously going to take another quick break when we come back and talk about the Mexican Grand Prix in general, because I think after that race, fair to say, one of the most boring of the season, in a season that's already not a classic. What needs to change about the track? What needs to maybe change about where we put DRS zones, something like that? And we obviously will talk all about that. So obviously, we did have the Mexican Grand Prix. We haven't done our top ratings out of 10. So do we want to do it before we dive into it? 3. That is not that's not brilliant. I mean, yeah, I was probably going to go for 3. So why are you saying 3? Is any reason, or just boring race?
This is probably the first Grand Prix since Imola that almost slept in the Grand Prix, and that was at the Clarendon.
Imola is the race. If I go to hell, Imola is the race that I'm going to have to watch on repeat, just staring at the rear end of an AlphaTauri for just millennia. That race that was one of the most painful races as a Lewis Hamilton fan that I've ever had in a long, long time. No, I was going to go 3 as well. Very dull. I think maybe not dull, but it just was so much less than it could have been. Like, we were all shaping up for Mercedes to battle Verstappen, and then we just had nothing. The midfield was a bit dull. Like, the top 6 finished as the top 6 for the first time in an age that I can remember. It was just wasn't a great race. So why? What do we need to do to improve it?
I mean, I want to go big technical again, so yeah.
Sure, I'll tune out a bit.
I mean, I'm going to kind of an engineering mode here. But, I mean, first of all, you can't really change it. It's the altitude. Because, yeah, theoretically it's a good concept, because the altitude basically means the cars pretty much struggle to get grip on the tyres and everything. But especially with how good the drivers are nowadays, and how grippy the cars are actually are at making grip, it's not really that thing. And then if it on any other track, if you get rid of the altitude, the fact that we have the high downforce rear wings, which means DRS would generally be quite powerful, which means that overtaking would be much of an issue. But because of the very low air density, that DRS practically makes practically no difference. There's practically no slipstreaming possible or anything like that either.
So, as far as I'm aware, it's the first time the top 6, or the big 6, have finished as the top 6 since Hungary.
Oh, wow.
As far as I can see. I'm just trying to... no, I think it is since Hungary, first time the top 6, or the big 6, have finished as the top 6. So, obviously, altitude, a big factor and a big problem. Can't lift up Mexico City and move it down a few thousand meters. So that's not being fixed. So, track. Do we do something about the track? And if so, what do you think?
I mean, we could make a few changes. I mean, I know it's not great for racing, but keep the stadium section, because that's just a really great spectacle.
You saw this. I quite like the stadium, and maybe tweak the stadium section a bit.
Tweak it a bit to at least...
Do you need that kink?
Not really.
Probably get rid of the kink.
Not really.
Would that help much?
Yeah, I think it just smooths it out in such a way that the exit into the pit straight is smoother, so it allows for the better racing, because it's very single file across there, and that's the problem. And it's the same problem as Abu Dhabi, which is why it's such a bad track. It's because that third sector is only so single file, you can't follow each other, even with these new regulations. So, you can't really overtake on that track other than the back straights.
Another thing, turn 2 and turn 3.
You don't need to get rid of it. Just make one corner.
Get rid of turn 2. Oh, yeah, and turn 3. Yeah,
just get rid of that whole chicane and just make it that one right-hander and then make it another even longer straight with another DRS.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easier. I think iron out the kink in the stadium section, get rid of turn 2 and turn 3.
And maybe just a little turn 4 and 5, that little chicane bit could be smoothened out as well. Maybe.
Or like a Canada-style chicane into turn...
Can do.
6. I think turn 6 is a terrible corner.
I think if they sort out the chicane before turn 6, that chicane could be amended in a way, or at least got rid of. Then it could be a good corner, because it's a hard braking zone.
Just Mexico turn 6 has always bugged me in how it looks like it should be an overtaking point, and it just isn't. It's never been one.
It's because of the chicane.
Yeah.
If there was a way they could make it into like a hard braking zone.
I mean, the whole second sector is pointless. Like, we're just following each other at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, keep the S's because, it gives it a bit of a challenge. And then the whole stadium section, that section is fine.
Yeah, I always crashed at the S's on the F1 game. It's very difficult on the controller.
Yeah,
I need a wheel.
I just cut the corner.
Nah, you're invoking the old Tiamat Marduk strategy, just corner cut. Straight line it, it'll be fine. But DRS, how do you think... What do you think of so at some tracks you see 2 detection zones. If you overtake into one corner, you then, like Bahrain is a prime example of that. If you overtake into turn 1, you can then get re-overtaken at turn 4. I've got no clue why they do one detection for both zones at Mexico, because at Bahrain, that's where the best bits happen. Like, you get an overtake, you get re-overtakes. It's such amazing.
It is it is a reason why it's one of the best tracks of the season.
We stand Bahrain. I love Bahrain.
It's such a good. It's probably one of the few. Well, it is one of the few.
It's the best Tilke track in my
opinion. Malaysia.
No, it's better than Malaysia. I think there's a few blinkers on Malaysia based on the fact it rained a bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Bahrain is consistently a high quality race.
That's true.
I
prefer the Malaysia Sepang track.
I don't know what happened to that track when it went from day to night. Probably the temperature probably helped a fair bit. But since 2014, the Bahrain Grand Prix has always been a good race. It's so good.
Watch how we inflict the curse, and then Bahrain's a stinker next year.
Watch how on the Mexican Grand Prix review, the Mexican Grand Prix was so boring. We've spoken about Brazil and now Bahrain. This is just not an entertaining race.
No.
Do you think we'd stay in Mexico?
No, we should.
Obviously, that's quite drastic, but...
No, I think we should stay. I think we can definitely tweak the track to make it better. Because, Mexico is one of those tracks where, yes, the racing has been all that great, but the spectacle is just worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same with Las Vegas next year.
The mariachi F1 theme.
Oh my
so good.
God.
I loved it.
I'm so happy they played it live. I'm so happy they played it on the broadcast.
And obviously, even when Sergio Perez leaves the sport, Pato Award, Mexican driver, could come in for McLaren. So there's openings. And
please give more super license points for IndyCar. Please.
Yeah, it's silly. We need more super license points for IndyCar.
The fact that F3 almost pretty much gets the same amount of points as IndyCar.
Have you seen they announced the F3 calendar? This is a sidetrack, but realistically, by this point, I think we've run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about the Mexican Grand Prix? Latifi was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? He overtook Magnussen at one point, and he seemed to be doing fine. Then I looked at the timing screen like 30 laps later, and he was a lap behind everyone.
It's Latifi, I don't know.
Oh, this was the best moment I realised in the chat. When Alonso broke down... Karma. When Alonso broke down, the VSC was over by the time Latifi overtook Alonso. Latifi had a terrible race. Alonso broke down again.
That's just his luck.
As a Lewis Hamilton fan, I was not, let's say, unhappy about it. As a person with Alonso as my turbo driver in my fantasy team, I was slightly unhappy about it.
I'll take No, I'm just not happy he retired, man. Give the guy a break. Give him some luck.
Stop insulting the 7-time world champion, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he said it was a bit harsh on what he said. He's like, Hamilton's titles mean less because he hasn't had to race. He's only had to race his teammate. First off, 3 of his I'm going to go on a rant now. 3 of his titles, 2008, 2017, and 2018, objectively not racing his teammate. 2014 and 2015, he was racing a very competitive teammate and did end up losing in 2016. The only titles Hamilton has actively dominated have been 2019 and 2020. For the first half of 2019, the car wasn't even the fastest, and Ferrari realistically went on their normal, let's throw this championship away and then get caught for having an illegal engine. 2020, very dominant, except that W11 is my favourite car of all time. So,
could you argue 2015 as well?
2015 was close up until the end, I think. Rosberg sort of lost it a bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Lost his rag. But 2014 was close. Just about lost 2016. Just about lost 2007. Should have won 2021, but we won't get into that.
No.
But I just think it's very harsh from Alonso. And I think sometimes your teammate is your biggest rival.
Yeah, no, it is not sometimes. The only person you can genuinely compare yourself to is your teammate, but because of F1's nature of unidentical cars.
And surely if you're in a dominant car, then you can only race your team. Like 2006 Alonso, that Renault was the fastest car on the grid. And he was racing.
You mean 2005?
It was 5 or 6. I don't know that bit of F1.
No, because 2005 was a bit more dominant. Because Kimi Räikkönen had like 400 million different engine issues with his McLaren. 2006 was when he fought. 2006 is when he fought Schumacher for the championship.
So 2005 then he's racing what, Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah.
Like, with all due respect, it's Fisichella. He was never the quickest driver in the world.
Yeah, Fisichella lost to Kimi Räikkönen in Suzuka. Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen was ungodly in that race.
Oh my God.
But he should have won that. Fisichella had such a big lead and he somehow lost to Kimi Räikkönen.
Exactly.
If you're any half a decent...
I'm not having Alonso diss Lewis Hamilton.
No, I mean, it is...
He choked in 2007. Alonso should have walked it in 2007, but then he got grumpy.
Every single time he's gone against a competitive teammate, he's been not great.
Yeah, take that, Alonso.
So, No,
I think those comments were harsh. I like Lewis Hamilton's tweet, just the thumbs up where I think it was the Indianapolis podium in 2007, he's just pouring champagne on a second place Fernando Alonso compared to a first place Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just snubbing each other.
I'm forgetting, how did we get onto this segue? We've segued off. But no, I'll bring it back to the other segue I was going to do. Have you seen the F3 calendar?
No,
they're going around Monaco. 30 F3 cars will be going around Monaco, the Monaco Grand Prix circuit. I'm just actively going to choose.
I am watching that race. This is the first time I actually want to watch Monaco this year. I mean, actually ever.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But as we said, the Mexican Grand Prix, not a particularly interesting one. And as far as I'm aware, we haven't missed anything about it.
I don't know. Maybe Ferrari being like 5 million miles behind, but that's just...
That's Ferrari at this point. It's just like...
Nothing.
Carlos Sainz in 6th place in the World Champs, but that's pathetic.
Because if you think about it, Sainz, especially in this half of the season, has been closer to
And I saw, like, people were saying, he's got really unlucky from DNFs. And I didn't in the chat. And I was like, has he? Because let's run through it. Australia. He spins out and retires on his own. Imola, yes, he got unlucky. He got punted off by Ricciardo. The next one's in Azerbaijan, engine, Austria, engine. Okay, yeah, they might have
Austria,
been right.
Engine,
Austria, engine, Azerbaijan, engine.
Japan, he got caught. He aquaplaned, so he couldn't do much about that.
Avoid the puddle. It's my
no, but visibility on that first one was bad.
Okay, fine. So yes, I may have been slightly wrong in that he has got quite unlucky this season.
Yeah, and then obviously.
So what? He lost a second place in USA, a second place in Austria. Third place in Azerbaijan,
probably.
I don't know, fourth, third Imola. Don't know.
We need to do a special episode just talking about how Ferrari threw away this championship next term. We just have to do a special one, a Ferrari special of how Ferrari just threw away the championship.
Ferrari, you're entertaining. Wish you could have been more entertaining. We would have had a good season, but we'll let you slide. Right, that's the Mexico Grand Prix. We've lost track of whatever's going on. This has got exceptionally chaotic. Grand Prix
for like 15 minutes. That's how much there is.
So boring.
There's nothing about it.
Boring. And then the Giants lost, and I had a miserable Sunday evening after a great Sunday afternoon when Manchester United won. Yeah. But
India lost to South Africa in T20, so I'm not happy about that.
But you won today, as we're filming it, so
that's true.
So that's better in a highly contentious. Why are we talking about cricket now? We don't. This is what the Mexican Grand Prix has done to us. No one listened to this show back. It's not a good one. This is low quality entertainment, but it is still entertainment nonetheless. We are going to now end obviously Mexican Grand Prix chat and then talk about the cost cap drama, because we finally got an outcome to what Red Bull, or what punishment Red Bull will be getting for breaching the cost cap for 2021. And now, obviously, we are going to dive away from the Mexican Grand Prix and dive into the cost cap drama. And what a drama it has been. Let me... should have done this during the break, but let me find obviously what has happened. So
I can still remember it off by heart.
Oh, go on then.
So obviously we just had a long stuff. It was too long until we found out what the punishment would be. So pretty much we found out. I'll start with Aston Martin because it was a bit obviously less serious. So they just had the procedural breach like Williams did early in the year. So it was basically they were just really bad accounting. It just made loads of mistakes with everything to do with like the new wind tunnel, catering services, costs to do with the costing to run the wind tunnels, logistic costs and catering. Basically all trivial stuff, and stuff like that.
So they misrepresented the cost of chairs and desks.
One of them was chairs and desks. Yeah. So then basically they ended up getting a €450,000 fine as a result. And but that was their ABA as well, or accepted breach agreement. So I think Williams only got fined 25,000 when they got breached last year because I think they it's a few
$100,000. It's not a bad penalty.
Yeah, so basically they just got dragged into it, the whole thing.
And that's the only team that got affected. And we'll move on now.
We also got Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull was actually found guilty of going over the cost cap, even though Red Bull are still adamant to this day that they didn't spend over it. But what ended up essentially happening is that Red Bull has signed an accepted breach agreement with the FIA.
So they've accepted guilt.
Yeah.
And they received a $7 million fine and a
10% reduction in the
aerodynamic testing allowance for the next 12 months.
Yeah,
definitely not on Autosport reading these facts out.
Yeah, so basically what it is, because obviously within part of the new regulations, depending on where you finish in the Constructors' Championship, you get allocated a certain limit for your aero testing. So the further up you finish, the less aero testing you can get as an attempt to level up the field. So it would be like so I think Red Bull for finishing first would have a 70% limit anyway, but then because of this 10% reduction, so 10% off 70% is 7%. So in this essence, Red Bull for the next 12 months will effectively get 12% lower testing limit compared to second place. At the moment is Ferrari, because obviously you never know what can happen. Ferrari, they could actually lose second place with the rate they're going at the moment.
Yeah. So the breach was £1.8 million. The FIA noted in its report Red Bull acted in good faith, listing a number of areas that the team interpreted incorrectly. The most key of which was a incorrectly applied tax rebate, I think. The cost was 1.4 million.
Yeah, so Red Bull keeps saying that the technical breach was actually around 430,000, so 0.37% of the actual cost cap.
But no one else interpreted that tax rebate incorrectly. Christian Horner? You did this. I am of the personal opinion that it's quite a light. I don't necessarily know how much. I'm not an engineer, as you all may be aware. I don't know how effective 10% is. Christian Horner's saying it will cost them anywhere between a quarter of a second and half a second a lap. That seems very high. I think I agreed with, I think it was Andrew Shoblin from Mercedes said that if 10% mattered that much, we'd see Williams being 3 seconds a lap quicker than anyone else this time next year. Obviously that's not going to happen, so I think that's a bit of hyperbole.
Yeah.
I think the 7 million fine is quite a large amount. I think it would be a lot better, and to be honest,
I think it is the second largest fine we've had in F1.
Yeah,
behind Spygate.
I can remember what £100 million. That's back when they gave out fines.
Yeah,
I think they only
but I think the 7 million fine by Red Bull is the second highest actually.
Fine. But I personally am of the opinion, I think this is a general opinion across a lot of people, is that 7 million should have come out of their budget for next year.
I mean, as much as I like to defend Red Bull for what, try and defend Red Bull, not define Red Bull, defend them. But I agree. It should have come out the cost cap.
Yeah.
Maybe not 7 million, maybe probably
half of it.
Maybe, I would say twice of what the overspend was. That makes sense. So 3.6 million probably or something.
Yeah.
Because, especially with the kids, I think next year's cost cap is going to be around 135 million, because obviously
they're dropping it.
They're dropping it year by year, but I think it should be a bit more. Probably it'll be closer to 140 because of the 6 sprint races next year.
So and then the reactions were muted. I think it's fair to say a bit of undercurrent of unhappiness. Ferrari were, what was it, quoted as saying they were genuine. They said unhappy.
I think a lot of people were just. I don't think people are outraged by the punishment, but I think people expected a bit more, if that makes sense. Personally, I think,
And obviously this now raises a question, is it worth it? Is it worth going over?
Mercedes will be, let's see Mercedes next year spending $400 million.
I just want the W11 back, that's all I asked for. But no, it does raise the question, is it worth, because you can still act in good faith and go over. Do this thing called lying.
Yeah.
But no, do you think that this will open the door for the richer teams to push it a little bit more?
Definitely.
Because
100%.
Okay, if we assume good faith, tax rebate obviously had a big effect, but that misinterpreted. So 7 million and 10%. So 10% is the difference between first and third in the championship. It's like, is it harsh enough? Because obviously now do teams have that incentive to go over?
But because I think now, I think for Red Bull, definitely error testing regulations will have an impact. I don't know I don't know how big of an impact, because to be honest, I don't know how big the impact will actually be. It could be. It will be around a couple of tenths.
Yeah.
It definitely will have an effect on Red Bull, because don't forget, because the 12 months at the 10% reduction starts now. It's not for next season, it's for the next 12 months, which basically means.
I was wondering how that worked, because I was thinking
it starts now. It's from
I was
October
thinking surely they'd done development on the 2023 car already.
So. They would have started it, but now what this means for Red Bull is that they obviously, they have.
So if they'd use 30% of their time, they can now only go up to 63 instead of 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the technical stuff starts now, and it's going to be until October next year. So it's going to impact the 2023 development for obviously now, the mid-season development, and potentially even the 2024 development as well. So it is actually going to impact Red Bull for possibly up to 2 years. It's not going to be that big of a difference, but it's still going to be a couple of tenths of a second at least.
well, I'll just quickly run through just before we finish. Obviously, everything that was in the breach. Obviously, the FIA found 13 errors listed. So, excluding catering costs, all the catering memes did in fact come true, which is quite funny. Excluding the costs of an employee on indefinite sick leave. So, I mean, these are just you can't really comment on, they're quite interesting. Excluding costs directly attributable to non-F1 activities. Exclusion of employee bonuses, obviously, for Max Verstappen's title win. Understatement of relevant costs in respect of a gain on disposal of fixed assets by failing to make the necessary upwards adjustment. Words.
Yeah,
I think that means they just
we're not financial people.
I think, as far as I'm aware, that means they undervalued assets that they'd sold or something like that. Maybe overvalued them. Exclusion of social security contributions, so pension plans. Exclusion of more social security.
So is it basically mostly just wages and the catering costs?
It does seem like wages and catering costs. It's actually the first time I'm reading exactly what was in it.
Yeah.
Power unit transaction in connection with an F1 activity must be included in relevant costs at not less than fair value. So that will be they're trying to shove some things into Red Bull powertrains that the FIA weren't happy with. More costs directly attributable to non-F1 activities. Spare parts. Allocating the cost of unused spare parts to the heritage department. It's believed to be the single biggest item on the list. So they've developed spare parts, shoved them in the heritage department, and then have written off the costs, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, yeah, that's probably something like that.
Clerical error in response to Red Bull's powertrains, more powertrain issues. Exclusion of all flight and hotel costs in connection with a competition. So they haven't budgeted for hotels. Or they've tried to pick that out. Because
I think, to be fair to Red Bull, the FIA did change some stuff with the cost cap, what was actually included midway through the season. So
everyone else managed it.
Yeah. Everyone else did.
Yeah.
But,
and all costs directly attributable to HR, finance, or legal. They tried to exclude HR from the budget cap.
No.
It's amazing how complicated it can be.
I think, first of all, this is a very complicated issue. And I think Red Bull made the mistake of trying to be too aggressive on the cost cap in the first season of the cost cap.
And they got caught out. Yeah. But I think, obviously, we've said what we think on the cost cap. And, obviously, you can all have your thoughts. I'm sure it's one that we'll rumble on. Right, we are going to take another quick break now. We're going to come back and talk through our predictions for the Mexican Grand Prix. They weren't very good. And we'll look forward to the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is always a banger. Please, I love the Brazilian Grand Prix.
We're going to set some form of cuss on it.
I just want to see Lewis Hamilton on the top step of the podium. How hard is it for that to happen? Max Verstappen, you've broken the records. You don't need more wins. You can just sit back, get in an Alpha Tower, start from the back of the grid. Show you can do what Lewis Hamilton did last season. They should actually do that just for the memes. Like, they've won everything.
I was surprised that they just get a whole new power unit in.
Send him to the back of the grid and prove you can do it, Max.
It'll quieten the Team LH.
Well, we'll obviously do all of that. We are going to be diving into our predictions for the Mexican Grand Prix, and they weren't good. We're not very good at this, are we?
No.
We're really bad.
We're shambolic at this.
We're just not good at predicting things.
We're shambolic.
Right, well, we podiums. How did they go?
We did do a similar podium. We both put Verstappen and Perez.
Yes.
But then I said Russell, you said Leclerc. So which is just pointless on both sides anyway.
So we got exactly the same. We got 4 points.
Yeah. And then, both our second 2 and 3 pointers were useless.
Go through them all. So
Right.
So what did we put for 1 point?
1 pointer. I said Perez pole position. You said everyone stands Papa Perez.
Yep, everyone did. Everyone loves that man, and I love that man.
But yeah, the second easiest 1 pointer. This whole.
Yep, 1 pointer. It's a bit like saying Verstappen wins a race at some point.
I think the three easiest pointers, the three easiest predictions we have all season. First was Verstappen winning. For me, last week's
cowboy hat one.
The cowboy Stetson, and he turned up on literally on the Thursday
and on
Horsey
horse.
McHorse.
I love Horsey McHorse. Papa Perez and Horsey McHorse are my favourite bits of the F1 paddock this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got 1. So I'm on 5. You're on 4.
Yep.
What did we have for the 2 pointers again?
I said McLaren outscore Alpine, and Ricardo outqualifies one of the Alpines. Neither which happened. No,
McLaren outscored
Alpine, but I don't think Ricardo didn't outqualify. Neither of them, I do not believe
Quickly
so.
back to the qualifying results.
But yeah, I'll quickly go over the three pointers.
Yeah, while we do the research, we definitely should have done before.
Yeah. So yeah, but you said Alpine outscores one of the big 3, which wasn't the case because the big 6 actually finished in the big 6.
Yeah, and then
I said Verstappen laps everybody except the top 5. I think he went up to the top 7.
He got all of the non-big big teams.
Yeah, I don't know if did he lap Ricardo at the end.
Yeah, no, he did. Oh, he might have done it. He might not have done it, but he might.
It was around Ricardo. It was around 7th or 8th.
How does that work? If you get a 10-second time penalty that puts you is it essentially
it technically would be a lap behind. Yeah.
Right. He qualified 11th in Mexico.
No, because I know Alonso and thing were 8th and 10th.
Did they both get into the top 10?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so he did not qualify ahead of Thingy. So that's 0 points from the 2s, and then the 3s. What are we saying for the 3s?
Yeah, I say that's the thing. Verstappen outlaps, and then you said Alpine outscores one big 3, so neither which happened.
Yeah, we're just bad at this.
But we are gonna have.
We're not like the FIA. We do retroactively change points. We are taking your 2 points away because they reversed that decision to give Alonso a penalty. So did they ever give me my fantasy points back? I want to check this right now. Keep going while I check my fantasy.
So that basically means that technically I score 3 points.
Yes.
Because 4 minus 2.
2.
It says 2 points, and you have 5 points. So it's 59-55 to me.
Oh, a bit closer.
So it's a bit closer, and this weekend might get a bit closer for you.
Brazil. First off, Brazilian Grand Prix, one of the best races of the season last season.
It's a great race. It's going to be a great weekend.
Arguably, Lewis Hamilton's one of his best ever wins.
I'll say it is.
I mean, with his
top 2. Top 2.
Yeah, 2008 Brazil's 2008 Brazil. No, that wasn't a great performance from him, but he overtook Timo Glock. Anniversary of that as we're filming it today, which is quite fun. God, if that happened these days, F1 Twitter would actually explode.
Man, I don't know what's going to happen to F1 Twitter now.
I think it would be worse than Abu Dhabi, I think.
Yeah. But I don't know what's going to happen to F1 Twitter as a side note now that we have Elon Musk.
Hopefully it burns like all of Twitter. I'm not a fan of Twitter. But
Twitter should not exist.
Brazilian Grand Prix, always a good one. We always pray for rain. It hasn't visited us over the last few years, but this season we've had quite a few wet races. It's not this weekend, is it?
No, I don't think so.
So I can't Google Brazil weather like I was about to. Right, let's find out if we would have had rain this weekend, and then.
I'm having a look at that very now. Interlagos weather.
No, but it's dry this weekend. But there's rain on the very distant forecast.
Yeah, distant forecast. The showers on the Saturday morning.
Good.
Which basically means it will dry up.
It will be dry. So that's sad. But anyway, what have you gone for your podium? Because I definitely haven't thought of a podium until just now.
Okay, I'll do mine. I can't be bothered with doing very safe predictions now. It's the last 2 races of the season. I've got a bit of a lead. I don't care. Verstappen signs Norris.
Ooh. I can see that.
I mean, it's not impossible.
No, I could see that happening.
This is one of Sainz's stronger tracks as well. This is where he did get his first podium.
I am going to go for Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell. I think the Mercedes will do well around an altitude track. I think Verstappen may be tempted to start from the back, but might not be able to just climb to the front. So I think Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell could be on the cards.
Spicy.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. 1 point.
1 point. I said that Mercedes finishes behind one of the midfield teams in the sprint.
A Mercedes or
A Mercedes.
A Mercedes. So, now I've
no. Yeah, I'll say one Mercedes.
Okay. My 1 pointer. We don't get rain on any of the 3 days. It's sad, but we don't get rain on any of the 3 days, and we all cry about it. It's a reverse jinx, because that's a win-win. I either get a point or I get happy because I see the weather. Actually, can you change it to competitive session just so I don't get the caveat?
Yeah, no, I'll
practice.
keep it weekend as a competitive session.
In competitive, I'm just writing these down to remember what I.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll write them down anyway.
Yeah. 2 points. What have you gone for?
I'm gonna go for a double McLaren points finish in the race with Ricciardo ahead of Norris.
You're very specific on these. Okay, I'm gonna go for Gasly banned for Abu Dhabi. I'm not saying he will, but it's looking like he could.
He gets 2 penalty points this weekend.
Yep, 2 penalty points, yeah. And then your 3 pointer?
Alonso DNFs on the last lap, and Ocon does not have a clean weekend.
Ooh.
Ocon,
you could probably just go with the Alonso one. That's 3 points.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm gonna keep it both.
Okay,
I don't care.
And I'm gonna go for cancelled. The race is cancelled because obviously.
Which one?
What? That's my 3 point. The race is cancelled.
Okay. So, do you want to keep both races or do you want to keep one of them?
No, everything's cancelled. The weekend's cancelled
okay.
Because there's obviously all the political drama in Brazil, and we got to wait and see. And to be honest, I want to get something out of the predictions.
You want to talk about tomorrow? Are you going to talk about it tomorrow?
Maybe.
Tomorrow?
Yes, I do have a new show here at 12:51 a.m. You know how much news there was this week? It's gonna be a nightmare. Because there was there's Brazil, there's Korea, there's Britain, there's America. There's half the world has got news. India had the bridge collapse. That was really sad. Yeah, there's a lot of news. And you can tune into it from Thursdays at 3 till 4, live here on 12:51 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm plugging in the podcast as well. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But that has been the show. I think we've had a fun one. Less organised, I think. Less to talk about, obviously, during the race. But I think we did. I think we did well.
No, we've done a good job on this.
Yeah, and if you want to come on the show, because we can't just sit here and talk between us for 2 hours, we need more people. Actually, we manage fine, but we love having more people because they make the show better. We get differing opinions, apart from me crying about Abu Dhabi every once in a while, and you being happy if Verstappen wins. We need more people that are unhappy if Verstappen wins. It's not that difficult. But no, if you do want to come on the show, just drop one of us a message. Obviously, Chinmay and then Will on Instagram. I'm sure you can find us through the F1 Society or whatever. Chinmay obviously on the exec. I just rock around and act cool most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, some of the time, none of the time, depending on who you ask. But no, that has been the Warwick F1 show for today. I've been Will Kingswood, your host, obviously, here with my co-host, Chinmay. Chinmay, what have we got coming up next week? Because this is one we've been talking about for a while.
Oh, man, I'm looking forward so much for this. If you want to come on, just let us know. We're going to be reacting to the Society's hot takes.
The F1 Society is seemingly the pinnacle of F1 knowledge at this university, and their controversial opinions and what we think of them. Are we going to rate them out of 10?
We are.
Rate the opinion.
Well, we're going to rate them one way or another.
We will rate them.
I feel like grading them might be a nice one.
Oh, we could do that.
We'll grade them instead.
Yes, we'll grade your controversial opinions. So, if you are in the F1 Society chat form will be going out. Just leave it in there. It will all be anonymous, so no one will know if you say Latifi is a better driver than Max Verstappen, if you say Lewis Hamilton doesn't deserve 7 world titles, and if you say Monaco is the best track on the calendar. All opinions that are wrong. And I know opinions can't be wrong, but those are.
Because they are.
But no, we'll have that coming up next week. But as I said, I've been Will Kingswood, as ever, with my co-host Chinmay. And thank you. Yeah, and thank you for listening.